What do you think? Is this queen crazy, or was she just misunderstood? Let's find out in today's episode of My Crazy Obsession. The year is 1626, and it's a time of great upheaval in Europe. Gustavus Adolphus, King of Sweden, has kicked off the 30 Years' War after invading the Holy Roman Empire in defense of the Protestant North against the Catholic South. The war is going well for him too, with his military victories at Breitenfeld and Lunetten, forcing back the imperial troops. However, in the midst of this conflict, he has a personal problem to solve. His 23-year-old daughter Christina has decided that she doesn't want to marry the French king's son as planned. Instead, she wants to marry someone else. Now, this isn't actually a big deal. Kings can usually get away with marrying pretty much anyone they want. But the thing is, Christina isn't your typical princess. She wants to marry a commoner. And not only that, but he's also Jewish. This guy is a Polish aristocrat named Isaac Conrad, and he's 18 years older than her. If Gustavus allows this marriage, it will cause a political scandal and likely end any chance of peace between Sweden and France. However, there's really nothing he can do to stop it because Christina has already made up her mind. She's defied her father before and knows that if she refuses to listen to reason again, he won't dare force her into submission. In fact, he won't even threaten her with the one weapon that all parents have at their disposal, cutting off her allowance. Christina isn't just some spoiled brat throwing a tantrum. She genuinely believes that she's in love and no one can change her mind. And so Gustavus Adolphus is forced to relent and allow the marriage. However, he does draw a line. Christina wants to marry Isaac, she must convert him to Christianity first. But this doesn't go very smoothly either. Isaac is reluctant to convert because then he'll lose his position within the Jewish faith. But ultimately he caves in and he converts to Lutheranism. The wedding takes place on December 1626, and it's clear from the start that Christina and Isaac are deeply in love. Their relationship seems happy and healthy, which leaves Gustavus feeling a little bit better about the whole situation. He may not like Isaac, but if he makes his daughter happy, then that's all that really matters, right? Well, it would be if it wasn't for the fact that Christina now needs to produce an heir. Sure, Gustavus loves his daughter, but he loves his kingdom even more, and he doesn't want the line of succession to skip over her younger brother. So once again, he tries to use reason to persuade her into doing what he wants. But Christina just digs her heels in and refuses to cooperate. She claims that she's unable to conceive and will never bear children, and so Gustavus feels like he has no choice but to accept the situation. He knows deep down that Christina is stubborn enough to defy him if he forces her into another marriage, but he hopes that she might eventually come around. However, 4 years later, in 1630, something remarkable happens. Christina gives birth to a stillborn child. It seems as though she was wrong about not being able to conceive. And so Gustavus thinks that maybe she was just lying to him about not wanting to have a baby. But he soon finds out that this isn't the case. Christina had miscarried some time earlier and didn't tell him because she was ashamed. But now that she's given birth to a dead child, there's no way she can hide it anymore. Once again, Gustavus tries to use reason to make her see sense, but she's having none of it. The two argue constantly, and the situation becomes unbearable for everyone involved. Eventually, Gustavus reaches a breaking point and banishes his daughter and son-in-law from the kingdom. He hoped that this would make them realize the error of their ways, but instead, it only pushes them closer together. Christina and Isaac travel all over Europe, living in exile and desperately trying to find somewhere that will accept them. But no one wants a heretic princess and a Jewish nobleman wandering around their kingdom. They need to find somewhere to settle down if they're going to raise a family. But where can they go? Perhaps England, ruled by the heretic Queen Elizabeth, could offer them sanctuary. Maybe she'd be willing to bend the rules for such a high-profile convert. Or maybe she could simply pretend that Christina never existed, and everything would eventually go back to normal. Either way, Christina decides that England is their best bet. Meanwhile, back in Sweden, things aren't going well. Gustavus Adolphus has died, and Christina's younger brother, Charles Philip, is now king. However, he's more interested in having fun than ruling his kingdom. Christina sees this as an opportunity to return home and claim the throne for herself, after all. She is the eldest child, and has always felt that she was meant to be queen. But Charles Philip is having none of it. He's perfectly happy being a fun-loving party king, and doesn't want his sister ruining it for him. So Christina is forced to flee once again. She and Isaac eventually reach England in 1634, but they're both shocked at what they find. This isn't the glorious country they had imagined. It's dirty, It's overcrowded, and the people are constantly fighting with each other. The only upside is that Queen Elizabeth is willing to allow them to stay as long as they keep a low profile. So that's what they do for the next 6 years. Christina throws herself into learning about the English language and culture, while Isaac works to improve his health, which has been suffering while in exile. For a while, it looks like they might be able to live out the remainder of their days in peace, but in 1640, Elizabeth dies. Her replacement, the heretic King Charles I, is even worse for Christina. Not only does he refuse to let her stay in England, but he also imprisons Isaac for trying to smuggle weapons into the country. Christina is furious and blames Charles for destroying her family. She had hoped to live out her days quietly in England, but now she has no choice but to flee once again. She and Isaac travel to Italy, where they live under false identities. All of Christina's money has run out, and she's forced to work as a servant in order to survive. She hates her new life and longs for the days when she was a princess, but she knows that there's no way she can return home. She's now completely alienated from her family and has no allies left. All she has is her faith and her husband. And so she throws herself into studying theology and eventually becomes a Lutheran minister. In 1648, Isaac dies, and Christina is devastated. She had never loved anyone more, and now she's all alone in the world. She spends her final years traveling around Italy, preaching the word of God to anyone who will listen. And eventually she, too, dies, passing away in 1694. So was Christina the crazy one, or was she just misunderstood? You decide. If you like this video, please subscribe. Also check out my podcast where I talk about all things tabletop gaming and my other projects. Thanks for watching.